Okay, so we have this last one right here from yesterday. Let's remind ourselves of the directions. So we're going to find the intervals where f is increasing and decreasing and determine the x-coordinates of all of the relative maximum and relative minimum points. So increasing, decreasing, relative max and min. All right, so we have f. Are we going to figure that out by just using f? Or what do we need to find? F prime. Okay, so go ahead and find f prime. Okay, do we agree with f prime? Are you even looking at the right part of your notes? You're not even pretending well. Okay. All right, are we good now? We all agree with this. Now, what do I need to do with my derivative? Equal to 0. So I'm going to set it equal to 0, and I'm going to get 0 equals 1 plus 2 cosine of x. Okay? Then what you really should ask yourself before you continue is, should I factor? Because usually you wait until after you've done something weird and it makes no sense for factoring to jump in your brain. I think the first thing you should ask yourself probably is, should I factor? And here, like, no, factoring wouldn't make sense. So then we can move on and start moving things to the other side, right? At least think about the factoring first. So I'm going to get a -1 equals 2 cosine x, right? Then what do I do? Divide. So cosine of x is equal to -1/2. All right. Then I have to figure out x, right? What should I consider when I'm trying to figure out my x values? Quadrants, absolutely. And so for me, it helps if I at least just do that so I can think in terms of quadrants, right? And remember, this is technically x equals the cosine inverse, but you don't have to write that. I think it's better probably, all this stuff makes a little bit more sense in your head as if you ask what angle gives me the cosine value of -1/2, which is what the inverse is anyway. But which quadrants is cosine negative in? Second and third, right? So here and here. And so then when we use our hand trick, when is cosine, what is our first quadrant angle? When is cosine 1/2? Pi thirds, right? So I know that it's pi thirds, which is not one of my answers, but then I have to know my second quadrant pi thirds angle, which is what? 2 pi thirds and 4 pi thirds. And do I need to keep going around? No, because this tells me from 0 to 2 pi, right? If it said just from 0 to pi, then I'd only have one answer. If it said 0 to 3 pi, then I'd have 3 answers, right? So just make sure you're paying attention to that. A lot of times it's probably going to be 0 to 2 pi, but we just never know that for sure, right? Okay, we good? So now what do I do with this information? Do the chart thingy, right? So I'm going to do the chart thingy. I'm going to do, let's see, I'll scroll some. That's okay. It's a sign chart. So f prime. So we put on there when it's 0, which is 2 pi thirds and 4 pi thirds. And we're only going from 0 to 2 pi, right? That makes sense? So it's not like we don't really have the infinities there. So from 0 to 2 pi thirds, what do I have? Are we positive or negative? We're positive, right? From 2 pi thirds to 4 pi thirds, what is it? Negative. And then from 4 pi thirds to infinity, positive, okay? So that means that my function is doing this, right? And that really kind of makes sense because you're going like this, yes? All right. All right, so now we have to say increasing and decreasing, right? So I can say f is increasing on what? 0 to 2 pi thirds. And what else? 4 pi thirds to 2 pi. Good. Because why? F prime is positive. And I might put greater than 0 this time, but it's the same thing, right? Just so you know it's different however you want to say it. And then I then go ahead and write the other one. And then go ahead and write out your max and mins. Remember, your words don't have to be exactly like mine, but you need to say the same things. So a couple of things to point out is that you have to say what, like F, not an it, right? Say whether it's a relative max or min, and you can't just say at 2 pi thirds. It would have to be at x equals 2 pi thirds, right? So you can't get sloppy on that. And then it has to be because F prime, and then you have to say from positive to negative, not just that it's changing signs. Okay, but if your words were mixed up or different or whatever, you'd be fine. Okay? What questions do you have? You get the hang of this? Yes? Positive and negative? Oh yeah, so if I substituted something in between 0 and 2 pi thirds, so like, I don't know, pi halves, right? And I'm putting it into here. If I put in the cosine of pi halves, well, that's 0, that's dumb. Whatever I substitute in here, so let's see, what do you want to do before 2 pi thirds, like pi fourths? Okay, if I put pi fourths in here, that's positive times 2 plus 1, it stays positive. Between 2 pi thirds and 4 pi thirds, let's go with just pi, okay? And so then when I put pi in here, cosine of pi is negative 1 times 2 plus 1. That's going to give me a negative number, okay? And then any number bigger than 4 pi thirds, so we could do like 5 pi thirds, right? And then 5 pi thirds would give me a positive value times 2 plus 1. I did kind of gloss over that, sorry. So yes, we substituted in, but I was also just kind of thinking of what, since we kind of know what cosine looks like, most of the time we don't know what these look like, right? And this is really just the cosine graph that's been shifted up 1. Right? And there's a stretch that's shifted up 1. And so I did gloss over that. I'm sorry. Thank you for asking. What else you got? Okay, beautiful. Now, get the other piece of paper that I gave you. We are going to jump to number 4. So this one right here. I'm going to give you a minute, and I want you to read it. And I want you to think about what you need to do here. Think through it before I just do it for you or with you. So see if you can figure out what to do with A. Okay, so let's see. Given all of this stuff, and that's just like a lot of information, right? And then they tell us that g of x is equal to 2 times f of x, and we want to know the sign of g prime of negative 1, okay? And so one thing that, saw you do, which is very good. I don't know if anybody else did it. Okay, good. Y'all did too. Just because we don't have an equation like we did before where we did sign charts doesn't mean that a sign chart might not be helpful. Sometimes from a graph even, you're just making yourself a sign chart. So let's make this chart based on what this says. So I'm going to have an f prime sign chart, okay? And let's see, from negative infinity to negative 3, so we'll have a negative 3 and then a 2, right? And so we know that f prime of x is less than 0 here, so it's negative. It's greater than 0 here, it's positive, and then it's negative. So that means then that this is decreasing, increasing, decreasing, right? And that may not be real helpful for this, but that is a good way for you to wrap your mind around what's happening on the graph, okay? So since here we are asked for, it says gives us g of x, and we want the sign of g prime of negative 1, I probably need g prime of x. So I told you to go ahead and find that. So g prime of x, is this easy or difficult? Easy. Do I need to do the product rule? No. You could, but you'd be in a whole lot of steps that you don't need to do. This is just a constant, so this is just 2 times f prime of x. We agree with that? Okay. Now, does it ask us for the actual value of g prime of negative 1? No. It asks us for the sign. Sometimes we can't find the value. They may ask us for the sign and we can find the value, but I don't think we have enough information here. But if I want to know, so g prime of negative 1 would be equal to 2 times f prime of negative 1. Okay, so tell me something you know about f prime of negative 1. It's positive, because negative 1 fits in here, right? So it's positive. So that means g prime of negative 1 is 2 times some positive number that we don't know what it is. So that means that g prime of negative 1 has to be what? It's positive. Does that make sense? It's reasoning through it. It's fine that we can't find it, and you don't want to get stuck on how do I find that, what's going on there. All right? So why don't y'all go ahead and do B? Give you a minute to do B. I'll pause. So let's look at B. And let's make sure that we found this derivative correctly. Do I have to use any special rule? Chain rule. So f prime of 3x minus 5 times what? 3. Does that give me f prime of 9x minus 15? No, 100% no. We can't distribute that 3. This is a thing by itself multiplied by that. Okay, so then I need g prime of negative 1. So g prime of negative 1 is f prime of 3 times negative 1 minus 5 times 3, right? So that's negative 3 minus 5, so that is f prime of 8 times 3. We all good with that? Okay, so tell me about f prime of negative 8. It's negative. So this is equal to some negative number times 3. So that means that g prime of negative 1 is what? Negative. Would we have gotten the same answer if we had messed up chain rule? Yes. Would you have probably lost a point somewhere? Yes, but you would have gotten most. I mean, you knew what you were doing at least. It was chain rule. Okay, we good? Okay, you see the reasoning stuff there? You got this? All right, so I want you to work on the rest of this together without me walking you through it. All right, ready? One more thing. On this one right here, we did a sign chart. We didn't know if we needed to or not, but it works. And I said when we did this, that sometimes even from the graph. So they're giving me this graph of f prime. They are asking for f and its local maximum. The sign charts, I think, make sense to you. And I think drawing them on there is really good. So let's take this and let's make a sign chart. So for f prime, my zeros, like I didn't have to do it with a function, I have it at negative 3 and 1. You agree with that? From negative infinity to negative 3, f prime is negative. From negative 3 to 1, f prime is positive. And from 1 to infinity, it's negative. Yes? You agree with that? So then when we did our sign charts, we went in there and said, okay, oh, I put f, I mean f prime. Dang it, f prime. Since f prime is negative, f is decreasing, then increasing, then decreasing. Does all that make sense to you? Do you see where I got all of that from the graph? Okay, so then it says local maximum. Now you can just look at your sign chart, and where's the maximum, at negative 3 or 1? 1, because you can see it right there, and that's your answer. So the sign charts, we're going to do it like I said before. We're going to do them a lot. They can be very, very helpful to help you wrap your mind around everything. Ask me a question. Give me dirty looks. What's your question? You got it? What are you said you're confused? He looked, yeah. I can tell when y'all give me dirty looks that you're not, most of the time, not trying to give me dirty looks. It's your thinking face, like I don't get it. What do you not get? Tell me. Okay.